Sand. It's an interesting object. It's found on most beaches. It's quite grainy. It comes in a few different colours. But what actually is it? We build sand castles with it. We make those oh so important sea defences with it. It's used heavily in construction and it's one of the materials that makes up glass. But have you ever asked the question, how is sand made? Most of the sand on Gower was made thousands of years ago. There is no huge quantity being made now because most of it was made by glacial action during the last ice age. In some parts of Britain, glaciers were a mile thick. Think about the immense weight of the slow-moving ice sheets crushing rocks at the base. Can you imagine if this happened today? All our cities would be crushed into sand by the glaciers. So, it's important to realise that the sand around Gower is a finite resource, and once it's gone, it cannot be replaced. Certainly not in our lifetimes. Some sand is formed from crushed shells. These are constantly being ground down by wave action into a fine particulate matter. Here you can see the gradation from large stones to smaller stones, moving on to gravel and then to fine sand. So sand is still being made now, but nothing like the quantity that was made by the glaciers, smashing and grinding rocks. In a bit of history about Gower Part 5, I talked a lot about underground rivers. And here, on Caswell Bay, is a classic example of an underground stream erupting through the sand. It's been a source of entertainment for generations of children. Lots of small animals contribute to sand. These include sea snails, clams, oysters, crabs and cockles, to name a few. I'm here on Swansea Bay, known for having the second biggest tidal range in the world. But what's also fascinating about this bay is how clearly diverse the sand is here. In this handful, you can see just some of the animals that contribute. Swansea Bay was famous for its cockles and oysters, and just down the road is Oystermouth. There was Roman activity here because they loved oysters. When the sand becomes very fine, it can become silty and full of nutrients, and some animals will feed off these nutrients. The reason why the sand appears darker here is because it's full of organic material, perfect for worms. One of the many creatures that live in the sand are lugworms. You can find lugworms in between the cast and the blowhole. The lugworm eats the sand, filters out the nutrients and excretes that sand as a byproduct, and that's what makes the cast. Another worm that makes its home in the sand is the ragworm. They dig much faster than lugworms. Here at Swansea Bay, you can see natural sea defences in the form of sand dunes. The sand dunes are given stability by marram grass. Their roots penetrate deeply into the sand and help hold the dunes together. Sand dunes change shape over time due to wind and erosion, whereas the sand on the seabed shifts daily. Sand is constantly on the move and changes with every tide. Sometimes the change can be very small and hardly noticeable, but after the winter storms, the shift can be dramatic, with several feet of sand being taken off a beach in a single day. Although the sand levels naturally vary, it appears the long-term trend is of general decline. This is controversial, and some people blame local sand dredging. Although sand is made up of tiny hard particles, it actually acts more like a fluid, constantly changing and shifting with the tides and the wind. Next time you feel the sand between your toes, consider the millions of years it's taken for every grain to get there. Thank you for watching.